Japan achieved what many countries only dream of in housing. It stabilized prices, built enough homes to meet demand, and kept many areas surprisingly affordable. On the surface, it looks like a perfect formula. So why doesn't everyone replicate it? Because what works in Japan relies on a unique mix of culture, regulations, and behavior. The same policies applied elsewhere often unravel. Housing isn't just about construction. It's about how people live, what they expect, and the systems that govern supply and demand. Japan proves that solving housing is as much about society as it is about building. Understanding that is where the real lesson lies. Japan's housing market, at first glance, looks almost unnervingly stable. There are no wild booms, no sudden crashes that wipe out wealth overnight. Every year, new homes are built, around 900,000 units for a population of roughly 125 million. That steady flow of supply keeps the market balanced. In major cities, rental prices remain reasonable, and home ownership is common without leaving families buried under mountains of debt. Home prices rise slowly, steadily, often over decades, even in the face of natural disasters like earthquakes or economic recessions. The system seems resilient, predictable, and fair. For the average family, housing is affordable. People can find a place to live without having to sacrifice their future, or spend decades paying off unsustainable loans. The market doesn't punish long-term planning or speculation. It rewards stability. Looking at it from the outside, Japan appears to have solved housing. But the truth is more nuanced. What works in Japan isn't just a formula of construction or zoning, it's a combination of social norms, cultural expectations, government regulations, and long-term thinking embedded in the system. Japan's approach shows that housing stability is possible, but it's about far more than just bricks and mortar. It's about the structures, rules, and behaviors that support the entire ecosystem. Japan approaches housing in a way that feels almost counterintuitive, but it works. First, homes depreciate quickly, almost like cars. New constructions are prized, while 50-year-old houses are often left behind. This keeps demand for fresh builds consistently high, driving continual construction. Zoning rules are flexible. Cities allow density, with mid-rise apartments scattered widely, and the constant tug-of-war with NIMBY neighbours is minimal. Builders produce efficient, earthquake-resistant prefab homes, small, functional, and designed to last within the system's life cycle. Government policies support this approach, nudging land use in productive directions and favouring development over hoarding empty lots. Earthquakes themselves accelerate turnover, replacing old stock and ensuring homes remain modern and safe. Without historic preservation, rules blocking change. Rentals fit seamlessly into this system. Strong tenant protections prevent evictions for profit, keeping units occupied and prices reasonable. Landlords have incentives to maintain supply, not artificially restrict it. The result is a housing ecosystem where supply naturally matches demand. It's not about heroic policy moves or one-off interventions. It's a finely tuned balance of depreciation, construction incentives, zoning flexibility, and social norms. In Japan, the market doesn't just exist. It flows, adapts, and supports life in a way few other countries have managed to replicate. Japan's culture aligns seamlessly with its housing system. People expect modest homes. Small, functional spaces are the norm. Status is measured by work, community, and stability, not by the square footage of a home. The population is shrinking, which naturally reduces the number of buyers competing for housing, easing pressure on prices without heavy-handed intervention. Disasters, like earthquakes, also play a role in shaping the market. When old homes are damaged, they are torn down and rebuilt stronger, safer, and more efficiently. There is little sentimental attachment to keeping a grandmother's house intact at the cost of functionality or safety. This cycle of renewal keeps the housing stock modern and resilient. Banks add another layer of stability by remaining cautious. Loan-to-value ratios are kept low, limiting over-leveraging and curbing speculative bubbles. Home buyers and investors alike will operate within these cultural and financial norms, which together reduce the fuel for runaway price growth. The result is a housing market that maintains balance. Prices rise in line with incomes, rather than outpacing them dramatically. Supply meets demand in a steady, predictable way. Japan demonstrates that when culture, policy, and economic behaviour align, housing markets can remain stable, resilient, and surprisingly affordable, even in dense urban areas. So, why doesn't everyone copy Japan? Because most countries hit walls almost immediately. Start with culture. Americans want big houses, yards, and garages. Europeans prize heritage buildings and historic districts. Japan's small is fine mindset doesn't translate easily. Try zoning reform, and local voters push back. Save our views. Traffic will explode. Prefab homes? Unions resist mass production. Designers call them ugly. Heritage laws freeze old stock. Demolishing without uproar is nearly impossible. Meanwhile, populations grow, immigration surges, and demand skyrockets. Japan shrinks, making the math work. Elsewhere, it breaks. Tenant protections? Strong ones can drive landlords out, shrinking supply. banks loosen rules, speculation bubbles return, and prices spike. Earthquakes in Japan force constant rebuilding, resetting the system. Most countries lack that natural mechanism entirely. Japan's housing stability isn't the result of a single policy. It's a system, a combination of culture, regulations, financial discipline, demographics, and even natural cycles. Remove one piece, and the balance falters. The lesson is clear. You can admire Japan's model, but it can't be copied piecemeal. Every part reinforces the other. Take one element out, and the whole, carefully balanced system starts to unravel. Housing stability isn't a trick, it's an ecosystem. Governments often love control, but Japan takes a different approach. It lets markets lead. There are few subsidies that distort buyers' choices. No lavish tax breaks encourage oversized mansions. No strict rent caps choke off rental supply. The system is lean, predictable, and designed to keep supply and demand in balance. Contrast that with many other countries. Policymakers pile on rules, often with good intentions, but with unintended consequences. First-time buyer handouts can inflate demand without increasing supply. Investor restrictions shrink the rental market, making housing scarcer. Eco-mandates and building regulations drive up costs, slowing construction. Each well-meaning intervention adds friction, making the system less responsive and less stable. Japan, by comparison, keeps it simple. Build fast, let homes depreciate, replace old stock, and repeat. Let the market function, nudged lightly by sensible regulations and cultural norms, and the system largely balances itself. The lesson is sobering. Copying Japan's model isn't just about construction techniques or policy tweaks. Politics, incentives, and cultural expectations interact in ways that can quickly unravel a carefully designed housing ecosystem. Japan's success shows the power of simplicity, discipline, and letting markets flow. But it also highlights how fragile that balance becomes when transplanted into a different political and cultural context. Here's the core issue. Housing solutions require sacrifice, and Japan's society accepts it in a way most countries don't. People there expect less space. Homes are seen as functional, not permanent. Families trade up roughly every 30 years, replacing old stock with new. There's no obsession with forever homes or untouchable backyards. Equity windfalls are rare. Stability is valued over speculation. In contrast, Western cultures often approach housing differently. People want permanence, large properties, and untouchable plots. They chase long-term appreciation, hoping for equity windfalls. That mindset makes change difficult. Proposals for higher density or faster turnover run into fierce opposition. Voters punish politicians who challenge these expectations, making it politically risky to implement policies that would stabilize supply. Japan's voters expect stability, not endless growth. The system isn't about creating lottery winners or speculative booms, it's about ensuring enough housing for families predictably and sustainably. Other nations chase rapid expansion, cycles of boom and bust, and constant competition for wealth in real estate. Japan, in contrast, teaches a lesson about balance. A housing market that serves the needs of society, not the ambitions of investors. But that balance can feel like loss to cultures accustomed to growth, ownership as status, and the dream of a forever home. Japan solved housing by aligning supply with its own reality. Shrinking population, modest tastes, natural disaster cycles that force renewal. Flexible zoning and building rules. The system works because it fits the society, not the other way around. Try to copy it elsewhere, and the friction appears immediately. Stable, predictable homes require trade-offs most countries aren't willing to make. Smaller spaces, fewer speculative opportunities, no lottery-like flips, no runaway equity gains. For Japan, that's acceptable. It's part of the cultural contract. For many others, it feels like loss. Japan proves the model works, but only if the society participates. Without shared expectations, housing systems unravel. People resist density, cling to permanence, and chase ever larger properties. Politicians bow to voters, and supply struggles to keep pace with demand. So, when housing remains unaffordable elsewhere, it's not because a model doesn't exist, it's because the social and cultural will to live it doesn't. Next time someone says, just build more, remember Japan. The lesson isn't in the buildings themselves, it's in the mindset, the rules, the expectations, and the behavior that make the system function. Replicate the structures alone, and the results fall apart.